What if the very chaos that's breaking you down is actually building you up in ways you can't see yet? In the next few minutes, I'm going to share something that might sound impossible at first, but by the end, you'll understand why chaos might actually be your greatest teacher, not your greatest enemy. Right now, as uncertainty swirls around us like a storm that won't pass, most people are desperately trying to control what can't be controlled. They're fighting against the current, exhausting themselves in battles they can never win. But what if there's a completely different way to move through turbulent times? One that doesn't require you to be stronger than the storm, but rather to find your strength within it. The people who not only survive chaos, but emerge from it more resilient, more wise, and more alive than before, know something profound. They've discovered that mental strength isn't about building walls against uncertainty, it's about learning to dance with it. And once you understand this deeper truth, everything changes. Have you noticed how the harder you try to stay strong during chaotic times, the more fragile you actually feel? There's something happening beneath the surface that most of us miss because we're focused on trying to control circumstances that are fundamentally uncontrollable. Picture this. You wake up and immediately check the news, your phone buzzing with notifications about another crisis, another upheaval, another reason to worry. Your mind starts racing. What if this affects my job? What if things get worse? What if I can't handle what's coming? Before you even get out of bed, you're already fighting a war against possibilities that may never materialize. You tell yourself you need to be stronger, tougher, more resilient. You try to build mental barriers to prepare for every possible scenario, to create contingency plans for your contingency plans. But here's what happens. The more you try to armor yourself against chaos, the heavier that armor becomes. Soon, you're not protecting yourself from the storm, you're drowning under the weight of your own defenses. This is the hidden trap of conventional strength training for the mind. We're taught to think of mental strength like physical strength, something we build through resistance, through gritting our teeth and pushing through. But chaos doesn't respond to force the way a barbell does. Chaos is fluid, unpredictable, alive. It requires a different kind of strength altogether. The real issue isn't that you're not strong enough to handle chaos. The issue is that you're trying to use the wrong kind of strength. You're trying to be a rigid oak tree in a hurricane when what you need is to be like bamboo, flexible, rooted, able to bend without breaking. Most of us have been conditioned to believe that strength means control, that mental fortitude is about having all the answers, maintaining perfect composure, never showing vulnerability. But this kind of strength is actually brittle. It works fine when life is predictable and manageable, but the moment real chaos hits, it shatters like glass. Think about water flowing around a rock. The rock appears strong, immovable, but over time, the water shapes the rock, carves through it, changes it completely. Now imagine water flowing around more water. There's no resistance, no friction, no struggle. The water simply flows. This is the kind of strength that chaos teaches us. Not the strength of resistance, but the strength of flow. When we understand this, we begin to see that our feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, and mental fatigue during chaotic times aren't signs of weakness. They're signs that we're using the wrong approach. We're swimming upstream against a current of life, instead of learning to navigate with it. The deepest truth is this: chaos isn't happening to you, it's happening through you. And when you align yourself with this reality, instead of fighting against it, you discover a wellspring of strength you never knew existed. This strength doesn't come from building walls or creating strategies or preparing for battle. It comes from learning to be present with what is, exactly as it is, without needing it to be different. Let me tell you about an old fisherman who lived by the sea in a small coastal village. This man had weathered countless storms, both literal and metaphorical, and there was something about his presence that drew people to him. While others in the village would panic when storm clouds gathered, he would simply continue mending his nets, his movements steady and calm. One day, a young man approached him during a particularly fierce storm. The wind was howling, the waves were crashing against the shore, and everyone else had retreated to their homes. But there was the old fisherman, sitting peacefully on his porch, watching the chaos unfold. How can you be so calm? The young man shouted over the wind. Aren't you afraid? Don't you want to prepare to do something? The old fisherman smiled and gestured for the young man to sit beside him. Tell me, what do you see when you look at this storm? I see destruction. I see danger. I see everything that could go wrong. Ah, he nodded. And what do you think the storm sees when it looks at itself? The young man was puzzled. I don't understand. The storm doesn't see itself as destructive. It doesn't see itself as dangerous or wrong. It simply is what it is, a natural force following its nature. The storm isn't trying to hurt us, just as the ocean isn't trying to help us. They simply are. He pointed to a group of seagulls that were riding the wind currents, dancing with the storm instead of fighting against it. Look at those birds. They're not stronger than the storm, but they've learned to use the storm's energy. They understand something profound, that chaos contains its own intelligence, its own rhythm, its own gifts. The old fisherman had learned this wisdom through decades of working with the sea. He understood that trying to control the ocean was futile, but learning to read its moods, to work with its rhythms, to respect its power, this was the path to mastery. Not mastery over the sea, but mastery of himself within whatever conditions the sea presented. The secret, he told the young man, isn't to become strong enough to stop the storm, it's to become flexible enough to dance with it. The strongest trees are those that bend, not those that resist. This story reveals something profound about the nature of true mental strength. It's not about building ourselves into immovable fortresses that can withstand any assault. It's about developing the kind of strength that can adapt, that can flow, that can find opportunity within chaos itself. Here's what transforms everything about staying mentally strong during chaos. True strength isn't about standing firm against a storm, it's about learning to find your center within it. Most people think mental strength means having unshakable confidence, always knowing what to do, never feeling overwhelmed or uncertain. But this is like trying to stop a river by standing in its path. The water will simply flow around you, over you, through you. Real strength comes from learning to navigate the current, not from trying to stop it. Think about a master sailor in rough seas. They don't try to calm the waves or control the wind. Instead, they read the conditions, adjust their sails, and work with the forces at play. They understand that the same wind that can sink a ship can also power it to its destination. It all depends on how you position yourself in relation to it. This is the counterintuitive truth about chaos. It's not your enemy to be defeated, but your teacher to be respected. Every moment of uncertainty, every challenge that disrupts your plans, every crisis that shakes your foundations is offering you something invaluable. The opportunity to discover who you really are beneath all the identities and roles and expectations you've built around yourself. When chaos strips away your usual sources of security and control, what remains? This is where real strength lives. Not in your ability to manage outcomes, but in your capacity to remain present and responsive no matter what arises. It's the strength that comes from knowing yourself so deeply that external circumstances can't shake your essential core. A tree that's deeply rooted can weather any storm because its strength comes from below ground, from its connection to something vast and stable. Similarly, when your mental strength is rooted in your deeper understanding of who you are and how life works, no external chaos can uproot you. The revelation is this: chaos isn't happening to test your strength, it's happening to reveal your strength. Every difficult moment is an invitation to discover resources within yourself that you never knew existed. Every crisis is a doorway to deeper wisdom, greater resilience, and more authentic power. This completely changes how you approach chaotic times. Instead of seeing them as obstacles to overcome or problems to solve, you begin to see them as opportunities for growth,
for discovery, for the development of qualities that can only emerge under pressure. Like a diamond that's forged under intense heat and pressure, your truest strength can only be forged in the fires of uncertainty.
When you understand this, you stop wasting energy trying to control what can't be controlled and start investing that energy in developing what the ancient traditions call unshakable presence. The ability to remain centered, aware, and responsive regardless of external conditions. Foundation 1. Inner awareness. The first foundation of mental strength during chaos is developing what we might call witness consciousness. The ability to observe your thoughts, emotions, and reactions without being consumed by them. This isn't about suppressing or controlling your internal experience, but rather about creating space between yourself and your reactions. Imagine you're watching a movie. No matter how intense the action on screen becomes, you remain aware that you're in a theater, that you're safe, that what you're watching is a story unfolding. The same quality of awareness can be cultivated toward your own inner experience during chaotic times. When crisis hits, most people become completely identified with their fear, their anger, their anxiety. They don't think, "I'm having fearful thoughts." They think, "I am afraid." But there's a profound difference between experiencing fear and being fear. The first allows for choice and response. The second leads to reactivity and suffering. This awareness isn't something you achieve once and then possess forever. It's a practice, a skill that deepens over time. Start by noticing when you're caught in mental loops, those repetitive cycles of worry, planning, or imagining worst-case scenarios. These loops are your mind's attempt to create a sense of control, but they usually just create more stress and anxiety. The practice is simple but not easy. When you notice yourself caught in a loop, pause and ask yourself, what am I believing right now? What story am I telling myself about this situation? Often you'll discover that much of your suffering comes not from the chaotic circumstances themselves, but from the stories you're creating about what they mean, what they might lead to, or how they reflect on you. This awareness practice is like developing a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Eventually, you develop the ability to remain present and clear even in the midst of intense external chaos. You learn to respond from wisdom rather than react from fear. Foundation 2. Aligned action. The second foundation involves learning to act from your center rather than from your anxiety. During chaotic times, most people either become paralyzed by overwhelm or rush into frantic activity. Both responses come from the same place, a disconnection from your deeper wisdom and values. Aligned action means taking steps that emerge from your understanding of what truly matters rather than from your fear of what might happen. It's the difference between reactive scrambling and purposeful movement. When you act from alignment, even small steps carry tremendous power because they're rooted in clarity rather than confusion. This requires developing what we might call responsive readiness, the ability to remain poised and prepared to act without being driven by urgency or panic. Think of a skilled martial artist who remains relaxed and centered even in the face of an attack. They're not passive or unprepared, but they're not tense or reactive either. They're ready to respond appropriately to whatever arises. In practical terms, this means regularly checking in with yourself before taking action. Ask, is this action emerging from wisdom or from worry? Am I moving toward what I value or away from what I fear? This simple check can help you avoid the exhausting cycle of constant reaction that characterizes most people's response to chaos. Aligned action also means accepting that you can't control outcomes, but you can control the quality of your engagement with whatever is happening. When you focus on giving your best effort while remaining unattached to results, you tap into a different kind of power. The power of pure intention, uncontaminated by anxiety about outcomes. Foundation 3. Patient cultivation. The third foundation is perhaps the most challenging for our instant gratification culture. Learning to work with the natural rhythms of growth and change rather than trying to force immediate transformation. Real strength develops over time, like a tree that grows slowly but becomes mighty through years of patient cultivation. During chaotic times, there's often intense pressure to figure it out quickly, to get back to normal, to solve the crisis immediately. But chaos rarely resolves on our timeline. It has its own rhythm, its own intelligence, its own timing. Learning to work with this natural timing rather than against it is essential for maintaining mental strength over the long term. This doesn't mean becoming passive or resigned. It means understanding the difference between urgent action and patient persistence. Some situations require immediate response, but most require sustained engagement over time. The ability to maintain effort and focus without needing immediate results is a crucial component of mental strength. Think of a farmer who plants seeds in spring. They don't dig them up every day to check if they're growing. They trust the natural process, provide consistent care, and wait for the harvest in its proper season. This same patient wisdom applies to navigating chaos. You plant seeds of awareness, of aligned action, of healthy response, and you trust that these will bear fruit in their own time. This foundation also involves developing what we might call comfortable uncertainty, the ability to remain at ease with not knowing what will happen next. Most people find uncertainty deeply uncomfortable and will create false certainty through worry, control, or denial rather than learn to rest in the unknown. But uncertainty is the very nature of life. Learning to be comfortable with it is like learning to swim. At first, it feels dangerous, but eventually it becomes natural and even enjoyable. Foundation 4. Natural expression. The fourth foundation involves learning to express your authentic self even during chaotic times, perhaps especially during chaotic times. Crisis has a way of stripping away pretense and revealing what's most essential about who you are. This can be terrifying if you've built your identity around roles, achievements, or external validation, but it can also be incredibly liberating. Natural expression means allowing your true nature to guide your response to chaos, rather than trying to be who you think you should be or who others expect you to be. It means trusting that your authentic response, even if it's imperfect, even if it's vulnerable, even if it's not what others would choose, is exactly what's needed. Now that you understand the 4 foundations, let's explore how to integrate these principles into your daily life during chaotic times. The goal isn't to become someone who never feels stress or uncertainty. That's neither realistic nor desirable. The goal is to develop the capacity to remain centered and responsive even when life feels unpredictable and overwhelming. Daily practices. Morning centering. Begin each day with 5 minutes of conscious breathing. This isn't about forcing calm or positive thoughts, but about establishing a foundation of presence before engaging with the day's challenges. Place your hand on your heart and ask, what does this day need from me? Listen for the answer that emerges from your deeper wisdom rather than your anxious planning mind. Midday check-ins. Throughout the day, pause periodically to assess your internal state. Are you operating from center or from anxiety? Are your actions aligned with your values or driven by fear? This isn't about judging yourself, but about maintaining awareness and making course corrections when necessary. Evening reflection. Before sleep, spend a few minutes reflecting on the day without judgment. What did you handle well? What challenged you? What did you learn about yourself? This practice helps you extract wisdom from difficult experiences rather than just surviving them. Responding to crisis moments. When acute chaos hits, whether it's a personal crisis, a global event, or unexpected change, you can use what we call the SAIL framework. Stop. Pause whatever you're doing and take 3 conscious breaths. This creates space between stimulus and response, preventing reactive decisions that often make situations worse. Assess. Honestly evaluate the situation. What's actually happening versus what you're imagining might happen? What's within your control versus what's beyond it? This helps you focus your energy where it can be most effective. Inquire. Ask yourself, what is the situation asking of me? What qualities need to emerge? What is my wisest response? This connects you to your deeper resources rather than your surface-level reactions. Listen. Before acting, listen deeply to your inner wisdom. What does your body tell you? What does your heart know? What does your experience suggest? This ensures your response comes from your full intelligence, not just your thinking mind. Building resilience over time. Real mental strength develops through consistent practice rather than dramatic breakthroughs. Think of it like physical fitness. You don't become strong by lifting weights once, but by establishing a regular practice that gradually builds capacity over time. Weekly challenges. Each week, intentionally put yourself in situations that require you to practice the 4 foundations. This might mean having a difficult conversation, taking on a new responsibility, or facing a fear you've been avoiding. These controlled challenges help you develop strength in lower stake situations so you're better prepared for real crises. Monthly reflection. Once a month, take time to reflect on your growth. How are you responding to uncertainty differently than you did 3 months ago? What patterns are you noticing in your reactions to chaos? What practices are most supportive? This helps you track progress and adjust your approach as needed. Quarterly vision. Every 3 months, reconnect with your deeper purposes and values. Chaos has a way of making us lose sight of what truly matters. Regular reconnection ensures that your responses to crisis are guided by what's most important to you, not just by immediate pressures. As you develop basic mental strength during chaos, you can begin to explore more sophisticated practices that deepen your capacity for presence and wisdom during difficult times. The practice of welcoming. This advanced practice involves learning to welcome chaos as a teacher, rather than resisting it as an enemy. This doesn't mean you have to enjoy difficult experiences, but rather that you can open to the possibility that they contain gifts you wouldn't receive any other way. When crisis arises, instead of immediately trying to fix, escape, or control the situation, you pause and ask, what is this here to teach me? What qualities is it asking me to develop? What wisdom is it offering? This shift in perspective can transform your relationship with difficulty from one of victimhood to one of curiosity and growth. The art of paradox. Chaos often presents us with paradoxes, situations where seemingly contradictory things are both true. For example, you might need to be both strong and vulnerable, both accepting and action-oriented, both planning and surrendering. Learning to hold these paradoxes without needing to resolve them is a sophisticated form of mental strength. This practice involves developing what we might call both and thinking instead of either or thinking. Instead of asking, should I be strong or should I be vulnerable, you ask, how can I be both strong and vulnerable in this situation? This opens up possibilities that aren't available when you're locked into binary thinking. Deep listening. This practice involves learning to listen not just to what others are saying, but to what life itself is communicating through the circumstances you're facing. Every situation contains intelligence. Every challenge offers guidance. Every crisis whispers wisdom if you develop the capacity to hear it. This listening goes beyond intellectual analysis. It involves using your whole being, your body, your emotions, your intuition, your experience to sense what's really happening and what's being asked of you. It's like learning to read the subtle language of existence itself. The practice of emptiness. This advanced practice involves learning to rest in the space between thoughts, between problems, between reactions. In this space, you discover a quality of awareness that's untouched by chaos, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, a strength that comes from your essential nature rather than your achieved identity. This isn't about achieving a blank mind or escaping from reality. It's about discovering the vast spaciousness that's always present beneath the surface activity of your mind. From this space, you can respond to chaos with wisdom rather than reactivity, with love rather than fear, with presence rather than anxiety. The ultimate test of mental strength during chaos isn't how you perform in meditation or how well you understand these concepts intellectually. It's how you show up in your actual life, in your relationships, your work, your community, your daily choices and responses. Relationship dynamics. Chaos often puts stress on relationships, revealing patterns that might otherwise remain hidden. This is actually an opportunity for deeper connection if you approach it with awareness and skill. Instead of trying to control how others respond to chaos, you can focus on your own response and trust that your centered presence will have a positive influence. This might mean being more patient with family members who are stressed, more understanding with colleagues who are overwhelmed, more compassionate with friends who are struggling. It might mean setting clear boundaries with people who drain your energy or reaching out for support when you need it. The key is to remember that everyone is doing their best with the resources they have available. This doesn't mean you have to tolerate abusive behavior, but it does mean you can approach difficult relationship dynamics with curiosity rather than judgment, with compassion rather than criticism. Professional challenges. Chaos in the workplace requires a particular kind of mental strength. The ability to remain creative and effective even when systems are breaking down, when expectations are changing rapidly, when the future feels uncertain. This is where your practice of aligned action becomes crucial. Instead of getting caught up in office politics, gossip, or collective anxiety, you can focus on doing your best work regardless of circumstances. This doesn't mean being naive about organizational realities, but it does mean not letting those realities compromise your integrity or effectiveness. You might find that your colleagues look to you for stability and wisdom during chaotic times. This is a natural result of developing mental strength. People are drawn to those who remain centered during storms. Use this influence wisely, modeling the kind of response you want to see rather than trying to control or fix others. Personal growth. Perhaps most importantly, chaos offers unprecedented opportunities for personal growth and self-discovery. When your usual coping mechanisms are stretched to their limits, you're forced to discover deeper resources within yourself. When your external sources of security are threatened, you're invited to find security in your connection to something greater than circumstances. This growth often doesn't feel pleasant in the moment. It might involve facing parts of yourself you've been avoiding, acknowledging limitations you've been denying, or letting go of identities you've been clinging to. But this is exactly how real strength develops, through the integration of all aspects of your humanity, not through the perfection of an ideal self. The practice is to embrace this growth process with curiosity and compassion. Instead of seeing your struggles as failures, you can see them as evidence that you're pushing beyond your comfort zone into new territory. Instead of seeing your mistakes as problems, you can see them as information about what needs attention. As you develop mental strength during chaos, you begin to understand something profound about the nature of existence itself. You realize that chaos and order are not opposites, but different aspects of a single dynamic whole. Like breathing in and breathing out, like day and night, like seasons changing. Chaos and stability are part of the natural rhythm of life. This understanding changes everything. Instead of seeing chaos as an aberration that needs to be fixed, you begin to see it as a necessary part of the larger dance of existence. Instead of fighting against change, you learn to dance with it. Instead of trying to control outcomes, you focus on the quality of your participation in whatever is unfolding.
This doesn't mean you become passive or resigned. It means you become more skillful, more responsive, more alive. You learn to surf the waves of change rather than being crushed by them. You develop what the ancient traditions call effortless effort, the ability to work with natural forces rather than against them. From this perspective, mental strength isn't about becoming invulnerable to chaos. It's about becoming so flexible, so responsive, so deeply rooted in your essential nature that you can dance with whatever arises. It's about discovering that your true self is not threatened by external circumstances because it exists on a deeper level than the surface events of your life. The paradox of strength. The deepest paradox of mental strength during chaos is that it comes not from building walls, but from opening doors. Not from becoming harder, but from becoming more flexible. Not from knowing all the answers, but from becoming comfortable with questions. Not from controlling outcomes, but from trusting the process. This kind of strength is available to everyone, regardless of their circumstances, their background, or their previous experience with chaos. It's not a special talent that some people have and others don't. It's a natural capacity that emerges when you stop fighting against the fundamental nature of existence and start working with it. The invitation is not to become someone different, but to become more fully yourself. Not to develop supernatural powers, but to discover the natural powers you already possess. Not to transcend your humanity, but to embrace it more completely. Living the understanding. Ultimately, mental strength during chaos is not a destination you reach, but a way of being you cultivate. It's not a problem you solve once and for all, but a practice you deepen over time. It's not an achievement you can display, but a quality you embody. This understanding transforms how you approach not just chaotic times, but life itself. You begin to see every challenge as an opportunity for growth, every crisis as a doorway to wisdom, every difficulty as a chance to discover resources you didn't know you had.
You realize that you are far more resilient, far more capable, far more wise than you ever imagined. Not because you're special or different, but because this is the nature of human beings when they're aligned with their deepest truth and connected to their essential strength. The chaos that once seemed like your enemy becomes your teacher. The uncertainty that once paralyzed you becomes your invitation to presence. The challenges that once overwhelmed you become your opportunities for growth. This is the ultimate gift of learning to stay mentally strong during chaos. Not just the ability to survive difficult times, but the capacity to thrive within them, to find meaning within them, to discover who you really are through them. And in this discovery, you find not just personal strength, but the kind of strength that serves the world. Because when you're no longer consumed by your own reactivity to chaos, you become available to be part of the solution, to be a source of stability for others, to contribute to the healing and wisdom our world so desperately needs. This is how staying mentally strong during chaos becomes not just a personal practice, but a gift to everyone whose life you touch. This is how your individual journey towards strength becomes part of the collective journey toward wisdom, compassion, and genuine resilience. The chaos will continue to come in various forms throughout your life, but you now have the tools, the understanding, and the practice to meet it not as a victim, but as someone who has learned to dance with the fundamental uncertainty of existence. And in that dance, you discover not just how to survive chaos, but how to find beauty, meaning, and growth within it.